All right, I think we have everybody back. Again, I hope that you really enjoyed the written conversation. This was kind of I'll be honest with you, a trial and error. I've never done it this way, utilizing Padlet, but it was an activity we did in the face-to-face that I really wanted you to have the opportunity to work through because it really generated some powerful conversations on the written boards, but also got a lot of people just kind of thinking differently about personalized learning. So again, no response right or wrong. But what I would encourage you to do, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes right now, just to take a minute, and you can utilize the 2 minutes. If I have anybody willing to come off of unmute and share maybe an image or somebody's comment that really intrigued you or challenged you, or that just kind of got you going, really know what I think about that. Or you can use the 2 minutes to go back and review the Padlets to see what other people have added. I would probably encourage you to start with the one that was your first to see what other people have added since you started it. So if I have anybody willing to come off of unmute, again, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. I know that's not a comfort level for everyone, but if you are willing to share, otherwise take the 2 minutes just to explore the other Padlets to see what other folks added and commented on. I do know that some of you I saw maybe asking about, well, how would you do this normally if it was not virtual? The image that you see on your screen to the left, basically what you would do is just print these images off and put them on a piece of flip chart paper, and folks would rotate with pens, adding their comments and feedback. So if this is something that you wanted to take back and replicate on a larger scale, it's a great activity to do with teachers, because you will find you have a lot of teachers that are not comfortable having a conversation. That is not, if you've ever done True Colors, that is not their color, but they are very comfortable writing about it and putting comments down on paper. But it's also a great artifact for your team to be able to bring back, especially if you do this at a couple of different schools, to look and see what are folks telling us, and where are we as a district in regards to our impressions and thoughts about personalized learning. So we are going to move on. I do know we are in need of a break. I completely get that. Some of you may have taken a brief break during the written conversation. But I wanted to, before we go into a break and start taking a look at our goals, introduce you to the RAND study. We, even as a team, have spent a lot of time looking for research to support this concept of personalized learning. But more importantly, we've been seeking out research that would start to identify some of the key components that seem to pop up regularly when personalized learning is being implemented with fidelity, and where they are truly seeing success on an academic but also a social level. So the RAND study came out in 2015, but it's kind of taken a while to make its way through the circuit. But the RAND study is a 3-year study. It spanned from 2012 to 2015, and it looked at a population of schools. For this particular graphic that you see, they looked at 21 schools. And where they saw personalized learning being implemented with fidelity, they absolutely saw gains across the board, which is really exciting for us. And they did just look specifically at math and reading. If you go in at the bottom, there is a link to the report if it's one that you wanted to take a deeper dive into. But what I really wanted to highlight from the report, in addition to the gains, is the components that they identified that were recognizable and available in all of the schools that they went into. And there were 4 things that they saw happening, again, on different levels, but in all of the schools that they looked at that had gains academically, the schools were implementing learner profiles, students had individualized learning paths, competency-based progression was starting to happen again at different levels, and they were providing flexible learning environments. And it's very clear, and you'll see in the article, they point out environments does not just mean seating. It also looked at flexible schedules. It looked obviously at flexible furniture. It also looked at flexibility of hiring individuals. And I saw that pop up on one of the Padlets, where someone commented that in order for some of this work to happen, we really need to rethink maybe the roles of some of the teachers or the support staff in our schools in order to better support this environment. So flexible learning environments kind of encompass several different things. Well, as a result of this study, as well as talking to many of you, several school districts, The North Carolina ESSA plan was approved this past fall, and it includes 4 very distinct pillars. Within the North Carolina ESSA, pillar number 1, learner profiles. So the North Carolina Board of Ed, as well as the State Department, has said learner profiles are critical to this work. You will notice as I go through each of the 4 pillars, they are not extremely specific. Even in the plan, it is not overly specific, and that is intentional. It is to allow schools and districts some flexibility in how they choose to implement learner profiles. But again, it's an opportunity for students to have up-to-date records that highlight their strengths, needs, but I also love that it addresses their motivations as well as student goals. The next pillar, personalized learning paths, which I know a lot of you are probably a little bit further along in this pillar than some of the others. The third pillar is competency-based progression. Again, allowing students to demonstrate mastery in a lot of different forms, not simply standardized online or written assessments. And then the last one, as I mentioned, flexible learning environments. So these 4 pillars actually present themselves within the North Carolina ESSA plan. What I would like to do now is to give you all a couple of minutes to explore the North Carolina ESSA plan, because it really is an important document to have time to explore and take a look at. If you are interested in having a protocol to help you kind of unpack what you read in the ESSA plan, I would encourage you to maybe on a sheet of paper on your computer to quickly jot down your 4 A's. What assumptions do you make based on the information you read in the ESSA? What do you wholeheartedly agree with? Where it says argue, it's more, what are you challenged by? And what is something that you're going to take from it and act on? Again, this protocol is completely optional, but I would like to give you, I'm going to block off about 5 minutes to read the passage. I would encourage you, the portion specific to what we just talked about are pages 8 through 13. The ESSA plan is about 200 pages. So obviously we're not going to have time to drill into all of it, but to really drill in on pages 8 through 13, which talk specifically about what I just addressed. What I also want to do is to give everyone a break. So the time right now is 10:37. So if everyone could be back in their space ready to go by 10 of, we will kick back up. So if you could be back in by, we'll say 10:55. So if everybody could be back in their seats by 10:55, we will come back together as a group and continue on with our work. But again, use the time to take a break as well as to read the portion of the North Carolina ESSA. As always, use the chat window if you have questions or concerns, and we will be back with you shortly. You are getting settled back in, enjoyed a nice break. I'm going to back us up just a little bit. And hopefully you enjoyed getting to kind of take a dab into the North Carolina ESSA. Again, I would encourage you as a team to continue to kind of unpack it in chunks. But we did want to make sure that you had exposure to the ESSA, and more importantly, that you kind of have an idea of, from the state's perspective, what is it that they're really looking for and supporting in regards to personalized and digital learning. So as we transition on, this is a quote. Some of you, hopefully I'm not dating myself too much, that hopefully most of you know Wayne Gretzky. If not, he's a famous hockey player back in the day, my day. But during an interview that he conducted one time, it was a radio interview, the reporter asked him, Wayne, what makes you such a great hockey player? How do you just seem to always stand out amongst everybody else that's in the profession? And he made a really profound statement that has stuck with me over the years. And he said, most people skate to where the puck is. So they're in the moment. So they're paying attention to where the puck is right then. What he does is he skates to where the puck is going to be. So he's always thinking ahead. He's always looking for, where do I need to be next in order to capture that puck and to be able to take it down for a goal. So kind of having that in mind as we transition into talking a little bit about establishing goals. It's obviously important for us to know where we are right now in our understanding of personalized learning, and as a team for you to know where you are. But in order for us to all have continuous improvement in our field, it's important to also have an idea of, well, where is it that you want to be, and how are you preparing yourself in order to be there? And this could be a goal or something of somewhere you want to be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It could be the next 3 to 4 months, or it could be the next 2 to 3 years. It's completely up to you how you choose to look at it. But again, keeping in mind this quote of Wayne Gretzky, excuse me, getting tongue-tied, it's always thinking about where is it you're going to be. So some of you are probably, or all of you may be familiar with the acronym SMART as we start to think about developing goals. And this is an acronym adopted, and I apologize, I need to cite the source on the page. I will go back and do that. It's a very popular acronym, but it basically, when you're thinking about developing an individual goal, you want it to be very specific, meaning it's simple, sensible, significant. Extremely important that it be measurable. How are you going to know that you've met the goal? And it needs to be not only subjective, but also objective. What is a measure that you are going to be able to see, or someone else would be able to see, to know that, yes, I've met or obtained that goal? Is it really achievable? Not going so big. It kind of goes back to that being specific, but also making it something that you know you can obtain and achieve in a reasonable amount of time. Again, so often we ask students at the beginning of the year, we ask teachers at the beginning of the year to create their individual growth plans. But then you're asking them to create a plan for an entire year. So you're looking at 8 to 9 months before they're really going to come back at the end of the year and look to see did they achieve it. So as we think about your individual SMART goals, make it a little bit less time so that you can celebrate and have milestones along the way. Is it relevant? If it's not relevant to your work, or again, going back to something you are passionate about, you are not very likely to revisit it and continue to work on it. And time bound. Again, going back to achievable, specifying a time limit and actually putting that time limit in the goal. So saying in the next 3 months or in the next year, you know, I will, whatever it is. So including all of this actually written out in the goal so that you can remember it, but you also hold yourself accountable to that goal. But in addition to just creating a SMART goal, I wanted to elevate it a little bit, and I wanted us to create a P-SMART goal. And this is a personalized goal. So I want you to hone in a little bit more and focus on one of the 4 pillars. Which area in one of the 4 pillars? It does not have to be the whole pillar. It could be one small piece of one of the pillars. What is something that you want to focus on in your profession? Again, you get to choose the time period that would support the work happening in one of the 4 pillars relating to personalized learning. So at this time, what we want to do is just give you a couple of minutes to individually sit. Again, if you're with a group, you're welcome to share out. It's completely your choice. I do want this to be something that's very personal to you. It is not a goal I'm asking you to do as a team. I'm asking each person to develop their own goal. You can jot it down on a sheet of paper, an index card, sticky note. If you're near a whiteboard, if you just want to put your ideas down on the whiteboard, you're welcome to do that as well. But I'm probably going to give you, I'll say 4 minutes to really sit and think about the beginning phases of your P-SMART goal. This may be something you have to continue to work on after our time together, but I at least want you to bullet point and get some of these thoughts down, and then start to craft what your personal P-SMART goal might be. So we will give you 4 minutes and reconvene. Encourage you to continue to work and refine your goal, but more importantly, keep this goal somewhere that you will constantly be reminded of it. I don't have it up on the screen, but some of you may be familiar with the text it later website, the Future Me website. If you're interested, we can populate those into the chat window. But they're great ways where you can go out and set up a future email where you can say, in 3 weeks, I want to receive this email from myself. And it can just be a friendly reminder, or it can be your goal of where are you with your goal. Or the text it later, you can set it up to send you a personal text from yourself at any given time. So again, we really want these goals to drive your work, but also kind of push you to continue to explore your passions, continue to look for additional resources and research that can support the overarching goal happening within your districts. So at this time, we want to transition into our breakouts. So let me get to our rotations. So as I mentioned in the very beginning, and I'll reiterate for those who jumped in a little bit later, we are going to give you the opportunity to go into 2 different rotations. So basically, you're going to go into a breakout, but we're going to split you down the middle. Rotation number 1. One group will be with Brittany. I'm sorry, let me get my screen up. I'm sorry, the first one. Oh, there we go. One group will be with Brittany, and you are going to be exploring learner agency, but how it aligns and supports learner profiles. We have found in our work that if learner agency, that empowerment for students, does not exist, when you create a learner profile for a student, or when you sit with a student and you ask them to co-craft a learner profile, they really struggle with it because they have not yet been equipped and empowered to advocate for themselves. They don't really understand how to explain their passions. And I learned this firsthand when I went into a school, and I actually asked a student, I think it was a 3rd, possibly a 4th grade classroom. I sat down next to a student on the floor who was doing something in a small group, and I said, "What are you passionate about?" And he looked up at me and he said, "I don't know what you mean." Like, what do you mean, what am I passionate? That was not a term. It was not something he had ever been asked before. So he wasn't sure how to respond. So I really had to break it down for him. But then when I spoke with the teacher, she and I had a great conversation where she had not really started to expose her students to this idea of learner agency. Therefore, conversations like the one I had were really struggling. So Brittany's going to take you through an amazing 30 minutes of just how do you start to think about embedding learner agency into the work happening in your schools. At the bottom of the screen, you will see a link to access her slides whenever you go into her breakout, and you will need to access her slides for the interactivity within that session. The second part of the group is going to join Jackie, where she is going to start down the path of competency-based learning, but more specifically going to hone in a little bit on what are some of those foundational components that need to be in place before you simply start asking teachers to be flexible and to start allowing students to demonstrate mastery a lot of different ways. There's a lot of foundational pieces that need to be in place first. So again, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of this side, you will see access to her slides as well in order to fully participate. After 30 minutes, you will stay in your breakout. We will simply switch the presenters. So breakout 1 will have Jackie join them to talk about competency-based, and breakout 1 that's with Brittany, that was with Jackie in group 2, will then have Brittany, who will transition over to share about learner agency.